Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Diverse Careers in Computer Science panel for exploretech.la 2021. So we are here today to learn more about different pathways and journeys you can take in CS. So I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. I'm Raf. I'm a second year at UCLA, and I'm actually a linguistics and computer science major, and I'm also double minoring in digital humanities and cognitive science. So definitely not just your regular computer science major. And then Bonnie.
I'm the other panel facilitator. Like Raf, I am also a linguistics and computer science major and minoring in digital humanities, but I am a fourth year. We also have some wonderful volunteers, Darlene and Erica, here with us today. It'd be great if you guys could unmute, just tell us a little bit about yourself, like name, year, major, and stuff like that.
Hi, my name is Darlene Pipigting. I'm a second year cognitive science major, and I go by she, her pronouns.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm a third year computer science major and environmental science minor.
Awesome. So those are our volunteers, and feel free to message them directly on chat if you guys have any questions or if you need any logistical help with anything throughout the entire panel. But yes, so now we're going to talk about diverse careers in our panel. But before we get started with that, we want to ask you a simple question. What word comes to your mind when you see the word technology? So try to open up this link here, and I think Bonnie will send the link as well in the chat. So I will open the question page in a bit, but keep in mind that the word cloud accepts only one word at a time. So if you guys try to put two words that have spaces in them, they're going to count as separate entries. So try to keep it to just one word at a time, but you can submit as many times as you want, and you can skip entering your name. So the website is going to ask you to enter your name once I open it, but make sure that you don't have to input a name. You can actually skip it. So I am now going to activate the poll, and you can type in whatever words you'd like that make you think of technology or you associate with technology. So now it's active, and yes, let me know if it doesn't work or you guys have any questions. So what word comes to your mind when you see the word technology? So we're going to keep that open for about 1 more minute or 2 more minutes. So it can be adjectives, it can be careers, it can be this any nouns, any companies, any names that you guys think of. Okay, so it seems that the poll is full already. So I can start showing my screen and see what we got so far. All right, let me make a new share. And does everybody see this? Can you give me a thumbs up? All right, awesome. So this is what we came up with our word cloud with as many word responses as we got. So we got computers, Google, AI, dangerous, scary, social, laptop, informative. So you guys probably have your own reasons for typing these. Feel free to send in the chat why you typed dangerous, why you typed scary, why you typed informative. And everyone here put computers. I see an Elon and I see a Musk. Those must be related. And we also have phone together. So now we want to broaden your viewpoint through this panel about what else you can associate with technology. So, you might think scientists, engineers, laptop. It's definitely informative. Google's definitely a technology, but there's so much more that we'd love to share with you guys through this workshop. So now I'm going to go back to our presentation. And all right, so now we can get started with some of the roles that we're going to look at today that go beyond the word cloud that we talked about earlier. So here we have product design. So product design is one of the roles that we are going to tackle today. And one of our panelists is actually part of this field. So product design goes hand in hand with UX design, and it focuses on users' interactions and maximizing experiences of the product. And we can go into the next one. Bonnie?
Yeah, so next up, PM is short for product management, and product managers are basically responsible for planning the overall strategies and features of a product. So they have to work with a lot of different people within a company, like the software engineers, the people who do like UX research, the business side, and all those things.
Okay. And another one is AI and ML research. So this is short for artificial intelligence and machine learning research. So those two fields go hand in hand, and they focus on teaching computer programs to think and learn from experience the way that humans do. So that's a very, very general overview of that. But AI and ML are two fields that can go delve really deeply, and we're going to learn more about that later. And then we have
Yeah, front-end development. So this basically refers to software engineering related to the user-facing interfaces, such as web design and development. So all the websites you see, and like, if, for example, if you go in the Padlet, everything you see is actually made by the front-end engineers.
Yeah. All right. So now that you guys know all these roles, we can start to introduce our panelists. So we'll go in the order in the slides, but make sure you mention the panelists, make sure you mention your pronouns, your position, and the major you were at in college. And Bonnie, if there's anything else you'd like to ask from our panelists to introduce themselves.
No, I think that's good. And maybe a basic, like what you're doing now and like where you're going to be for graduation if you're still a college student.
Aha, yeah, exactly. All right, so we can get started. First, we have Justine. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi everyone. So my name is Justine. She, her pronouns. Fun fact: I'm in Taiwan right now, so it's 3 a.m. It's awesome. And I also am at UCLA. I just graduated, like 3 weeks ago, I think, with a bachelor, a BS in cognitive science. But another interesting fact: I used to be a piano performance major, so like I have a kind of a 180-degree like switch of a career journey, and I've been a product designer for about 3 years now. And like Raf kind of said, basically in a nutshell, what I do is make technology and the user interface more usable, useful, and intuitive. So I work a lot with like front end developers, and I've been at Microsoft for the past 2 summers, working on the email client Outlook, and I will be returning full time this August. So that's kind of me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justine. Risha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Rucha, she, her yes, okay. She, her pronouns, and I'm a computer science major. I'm finishing up. I have a couple months left. Time has really flown by, but I'm gonna be a product manager. And so my journey has been kind of all over the place. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So again, if you're in the same spot, like don't worry, you'll figure things out. For 2 summers, I was doing software engineering at Facebook, and then I kind of shifted roles into product management. And so I had a summer where I was doing product management internship at Salesforce, and that's where I'm going to be going full time after I graduate in June.
Awesome. Now we have Arjun. You feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Arjun. I use they, them pronouns. And I also, just like Justine, graduated like 2 to 3 weeks ago, which is great because I'm glad I don't have any more homework to do, genuinely. And I guess I do a lot of machine learning research, which Raf explained a couple of slides ago, is it's a way to get machines to kind of think intelligently like humans. So artificial intelligence as a whole is about getting machines to perform intelligent tasks, whether that be like speech recognition or computer vision tasks like facial recognition. And machine learning is just one of the tools in your toolbox to achieve those things. And I'll talk about it a little bit more later. Like for the past 2 summers, I was doing software engineering work, and I was, to be honest, very miserable. Like I did not like doing software engineering work. But during the school year, I was doing machine learning research at UCLA, and I really enjoyed that because I felt like I had a lot of freedom to come up with ideas, be creative, seek out solutions, collaborate. And so into the future, I'm probably gonna be working on that a lot more. I'm currently interning at the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, where I'm working on making machine learning models more fair and equitable for everyone in society. And I'm probably going to return to UCLA for my PhD next year.
Wow, very cool. Thank you, Arjun. Lastly, we have our panelist, Isabella.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. So my name is Isabella, she, her pronouns, and okay, you can hear me, okay. So I am a UCLA alum. I graduated in 2019, and I actually majored in what's called DESMA, Design Media Arts. So it's basically anything you can make with a computer, but it's mostly focused on graphic design. So I had a very different background than most people here, but now I am a software engineer at Walt Disney, and I've been there for about a year and a half, I think now. I started about September 2019. So it's been a good time so far. I'm really enjoying it. And I kind of got onto this path in a strange way. While I was at UCLA, had a lot of friends that were into software engineering, and that kind of opened my eyes to this whole career path and area of technology. And I just thought it was so cool, and did a lot of working with friends and making things, and now I'm here. So yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much for introductions. Now we'll move straight to some prepared questions. And in the last like 10 to 15 minutes, we'll be asking some audience prepared questions. So I see you guys already put some stuff in the Padlet, but let me send the link again for people who just joined. This is a link where you can add any questions you want to ask, and we'll get to those at the very end. So yeah, let's jump right in. First, can you tell us a little bit more about your role? What is a typical day like? We can go in the order of Justine, then Rucha, then Arjun, then Isabel.
Yeah, of course. Let me explain a little bit more in detail what product design entails and like the responsibilities, and I'll go into a typical day. So like in a nutshell, like have you ever had like trouble navigating like a website, or were you ever like frustrated with a mobile app and you couldn't figure it out? You like maybe like click on something and then it took you to a different page, and when you tried to go back, it like completely refreshed or something, and it was like way too confusing. That's definitely happened to me. Product designers generally you make technology more usable, useful, intuitive, and accessible to everyone. So what we do is we talk to users, like or consumers, the people who actually use apps or websites, people like you and me. Something like Instagram or something, like there's product designers behind it, behind every design decision, and product designers from Instagram, for example, talk to like volunteers or people like us to kind of understand our motivations and what are our frustrations, and kind of use those insights to turn them into like features into the UI. We conduct research, and then so that's kind of like the meta theoretical research portion of UX design. And then you jump into the design software, something like I use Figma, I've used Sketch. There's like prototyping tools also to make apps like interactive or like touchable, swipeable, like something like ProtoPie. And then that's when you actually design the screens, design the interactions between the screens. So essentially anything you see on the phone or laptop you're using, the UI, that the user interface, the entire experience, and not just the visuals, is what product designers are responsible for. And typical day, there really is no typical day. I don't think so. And I'm sure that's the same fact for like all three of you guys too. But let's say like I'm a product designer for maybe like Zoom, and the challenge I'm tasked with is like how might we make education experiences more interactive with students on our platform. They're like big problems or questions like that. And so for example, I worked at Microsoft, and we're a productivity company, and I worked specifically on Outlook, so the email client. So for example, maybe a question or a challenge I might have been tasked with is how might we make email less boring and like intimidating for like everyone, because everyone has like a negative connotation of email. And so maybe like the first week I might be deep diving into like research, understanding consumers, enterprise people, like why do they think email, why do they have a negative perception of email, kind of understanding motivations, frustrations, pain points. And then maybe like the second week you talk to like your PM or your engineers, the design leads of, okay, using these insights, how can we turn those into like tangible design solutions into like Outlook? What kind of features can we maybe like brainstorm? And then maybe third week, fourth week, you start maybe you start off by paper pen drafting up like design stuff. Don't hop into the design software yet, just kind of like really quick iterative kind of solutions, and then you jump into a design software, maybe something like Figma, and then you start designing screens, talking to engineers again, PMs, kind of like popping off like ideas here and there. And yeah, so in essence, there really is no typical day, because half the time you're just talking to people, half the time you're like siloing yourself to like design your stuff, and then coming back, iterating, talking to users, showing users your prototypes and your design screens to see if does this work, is this intuitive, and then kind of going back and jumping off of feedback again. So yeah. Right. Awesome, cool. So as a reminder, I am kind of talking about product management. And so to start off, I know the acronym PM can be super confusing, because sometimes they use it to refer to program management, sometimes it's project management, and sometimes it's product management. And so all three are different. Me in particular, I'm doing product management. And so what that really is the intersection of business and design and engineering. And so again, like I work super closely with all of these different people in all of these different fields. And that's kind of what attracted me to the role as well. And similar to what Justine mentioned, like there is no typical day. It really depends on what you're working on, what stage your product is in, and all of that. But to kind of sum it up, product managers are really, really focused on the users. So who is using my product, right? And what issues are they running into? What do they want to see from the product? And so it's a product manager's responsibility to really look at the users and be like, oh, okay, they really want this. They're really struggling with this. So then you pinpoint the problem. And then after that, you can really ideate solutions. So, okay, how do I fix this? And what can I do because of that? And you probably end up with a list of all the different solutions that you can have for that one problem. And so as a product manager, you're talking to your engineers, you're talking to your designers to see, okay, what's possible? What can I actually do for these users? And then you come to a solution. And then again, you're working with all of these different people to make that a reality. So again, this kind of whole process goes from research to defining the problem, to ideating all these different solutions, and then actually building out the solution and testing. So it's really just across the board working with everyone involved. So for example, think about Instagram, like old Instagram, right? And a possible problem you could be seeing is that, okay, these users really like to post polished content, but because of that, people aren't really posting as often because they want everything to look perfect. So one solution that a product manager could think of is be like, okay, let's have some sort of solution to post temporarily, and then maybe these things could disappear. And that's stories, right? And in their research, they probably looked at Snapchat and was like, hey, they're doing that and that works. So again, it's a lot of like research and finding solutions. So that's it in a nutshell, but again, it encompasses a lot.
Yeah, so for me, I don't want to like make this sound like there's no typical day for anyone, but there really is no concept of like a typical day. Especially for research, I find myself spending half my time coming up with ideas. Like that's generally a description for PhD students, for research scientists. The role is coming up with ideas. And I want to start off by talking about the difference between what exactly a researcher does and what an engineer does. So as an engineer, extremely important, very central to a lot of the products that you see. Software engineers in particular take libraries that are built already, or they build their own libraries, and then they take these different components, put them together, and they're able to create something that a lot of people can use. And so researchers try to come up with the science that allows for the creation of those libraries or those tools. And it definitely, when you think of researcher, you might be thinking like a person who works in a wet lab with chemicals and they're experimenting with like the newest like COVID vaccine or something like that. But computer scientists can also be scientists. Like we come up with hypotheses, we come up with experiments that we can run to test those hypotheses. And I can give an example of that from my work. Even though I mentioned that I do artificial intelligence and machine learning research, I kind of do those a little bit independently. So I do machine learning research for what's called discovery or data mining. I particularly work with data that is graph structured. And there are a lot of cool things that you can do with graph data. You can represent molecules. You can represent social networks. So like, for example, on Facebook, you can have people on the network and you can put edges between them to represent that they're friends or that they've liked each other's posts. And I work to make sure that when you do machine learning on these graphs, that no one is being treated unjustly, because machine learning has a tendency, I'm sure as you've heard, to be very unfair to groups who are not represented in your data sets. And I also work on machine learning for molecule property prediction. So I can take processes that in a wet lab would maybe take 8 hours a day, a week, maybe even a month to like test molecules and determine what properties they have, and instead use machine learning to predict those properties within a little bit less than a second. And so it's kind of like very fun to work with that, because I have to take hypotheses that I would come up with if I were like a wet lab scientist and then apply them to the computer science domain, but still follow all these scientific principles. In terms of like the people I work with, it's very collaborative. Research does not happen in a vacuum. Like you have to talk to other people in order to get a sense of what's going on. I try to read papers from other fields so that I get ideas from them. There's a tendency in research to kind of like box yourself in, but that never leads to good research because you need to collaborate with other people to get good ideas. Really quickly about what I'm doing currently. I'm working at the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, where I am building like tools that can help researchers evaluate the fairness of their models and make them more fair. And this is actually a role called research engineering. And this is adjacent to the research science discipline that I was talking about earlier. So research engineering is the creation of libraries, the creation of tools that make the research process easier. Nowadays with machine learning research, it can get very complex, like you're hearing about larger and larger machine learning models, and we need engineering practices to make the construction of these models, the use of these models easier. And so I'm trying to build tools that can help machine learning researchers evaluate fairness, because that's something that's really important, but oftentimes scientists don't want to implement themselves. They don't want to do this every time they run their experiments. I'm trying to make it as easy to use for them as possible.
All right, cool. All right, so again, a little reminder of what I am. I am a software engineer at Disney. So a little bit about what that means. Software engineering is kind of a really broad term, and it actually means a lot of things. So I am specifically a front-end engineer, which means that I basically build the website that you see on a web page. So like all the components that you see, all the text, all the images and everything, that is the job of a front-end engineer, is to put those there and make it look the way that it does. My typical day, again, not really a typical day really ever, but generally what I work on is the home pages for Disney World, Disneyland, and Disney Cruise Line. So if you go on those websites now, you'll see the homepage, and that's what me and my team does, is build that. So, you know, we could be updating a component that's already on the page if it needs to be updated for some reason, or if there's a new ride coming out and we have something new, and things like that. And also we might be doing some new components, which I'm actually working on a new component now. So that's really fun. And our team works a lot all the time with people like Justine and Rucha, product managers and product designers. We get basically what they want. We talk to them first and they're like, okay, this is what we're planning on doing next. This is the next step. And then my team and me, we're the ones that actually build it and put it up there to the world to see, for the world to see. Let's see what else. Yeah, not really a typical day ever. So yeah, there's really fun parts. My favorite parts are the times when we get to build something new, and then also updating existing products or components that are already on the page. Those are my favorite things. But then there's also bugs that happen, which I'm sure all software engineers come across this, and we're always fixing those as well. So that's also part of the job. And then something new that I've learned while being at Disney, I had some software engineering internships while I was in college, but then actually being in a large company now, there's also a lot of things that come with being in a large company that you spend a lot of your day working on just meetings and talking to people about the projects that you're working on and updates that need to happen and things that are just related to large companies that I never really got the sense of that when I was just working on projects with my friends. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you so much for answering. So as we may have seen that there's not a typical day for any of our panelists. That's probably very typical for any career, especially the diverse ones here in CS. So now we want to get to our next question. For this next question, let's try for our panelists to get our answers to about 2 or so minutes so that we can get to as many of our students' questions as we can as well. So thank you so much for answering. And now for our next question. We can go in reverse order, if that's okay. Isabella, Arjun, Rucha, and Justine. How did you first find out about this area of technology, and what about it appealed to you?
Sure, cool. So I think I said at the beginning, I was actually a design media arts major in college, which I had in those classes for that major. We had some software engineering. We did very basic HTML, CSS kind of stuff, building a web page. But I didn't really get too much software engineering experience with just my major. Really, how I learned about this whole career path was through friends that I made and clubs that I joined and everything like that. So I really highly recommend talking to your friends and getting involved with what they're doing if you're finding it interesting. I also while I was in design school, I also wanted to build a website because I had all this design work that I wanted to show to maybe get jobs for design. But then I ended up falling in love with the process of building a website. And I did a lot of, I did it all just by myself, Googling, how do I make this look the way I want it to, basically. And just going from there and fixing problems and just testing it out, just getting in there and doing it. Sorry, my voice. Just getting in there and doing it. Yeah. So let's see what the question was. How did I get into this? Yes. So just being inspired by the people around me and wanting to do this and then actually just doing it. Yeah.
For me, I kind of want to start off by addressing my positionality and kind of privilege in the situation. So I grew up in the Silicon Valley. And so machine learning, artificial intelligence were buzzwords that I kind of heard thrown around all the time. And that's definitely was very pivotal in me getting involved in this field to begin with. And so I was just so interested in the concept of autonomous vehicles or the concept of facial recognition systems. And I just was I have to go learn how this works. And it was a lot of complex math, to be honest, but it was really interesting. So I kept on diving a little bit deeper. When I got to UCLA, ACM is this awesome student organization we have here. And I joined the artificial intelligence chapter and I found so many friends there. So that pushed me even further. But I have to say what was really pivotal to me continuing in the field and not getting disillusioned was taking this FAIR natural language processing class offered by a professor here. And the majority of people building artificial intelligence systems are not representative of the general population. And so it's very clear from the technology that they build that it does not work well for everyone. And so I've dedicated a good part of my research to making these systems more equitable. Most recently, I've been working on getting language models to recognize non-binary individuals and gender identities. So this is something that keeps me in the field. I can't leave it marginalized voices out of the field. I want to make sure that we make the field better for everyone.
Awesome. So how did I first hear about product management? This is actually a funny story. So my second summer of doing software engineering at Facebook, I was actually working for Lasso, which was Facebook's TikTok competitor before Reels. It was its own app. And so this was a super fun experience, but it was also a really small team. So for this whole app, there were about 3 iOS engineers, 3 to 4 Android engineers, 2 designers, and 1 product manager. And that was the entirety of it, along with some marketers. And so because of that, like even as a software engineer, I got to sit in on some meetings, and all of these meetings were headed by this product manager. And he would always go and explain, you know, what our strategy was, what the next features we were that we were building. He'd talk about marketing strategies, what countries we were reaching out to, and all of this. And I was so curious. I was like, what kind of role is this that they get to do, you know, all of these sorts of things? They get to talk to engineers, they get to talk to designers, they get to talk to marketers, they get to talk to legal teams. Like it's really all over the place. And so I got to talking with him, and he was like, yeah, like this is what I do, this is what the role encompasses. And I was like, wow, like that's exactly what I want to do, just like in a role. And so I was immediately kind of drawn to it then. And so yeah, like what appealed to me about it, definitely just how multifaceted it is. Again, like no day is like the last, and that was really interesting to me. I think for me as a software engineer, like some people really enjoy that. And for me, I just wasn't really feeling fulfilled in that role and going and kind of sitting down and working. But you know, in this role as a product manager, I have always loved talking to people. I always love kind of collaborating and coming to solutions with other people. And so that general collaborative environment, as well as the multifaceted role, really, really spoke to me. So that was kind of my journey into being a PM.
And for me, how did I first find out about this area of technology and what appealed to me about it? Like I said, I was in piano performance before, so a completely different space. And also, like Arjun, I was also raised in the Silicon Valley. So I think in the back of my head, I've always been interested in tech. So part of that's why I didn't go to a piano conservatory and went to UCLA to maybe like potentially switch. And we do have, any school has this, but UCLA had a mentor program. And when I dropped out of the piano major, well, that sounds terrible. When I switched out of the piano major, I was kind of lost. So I knew we had a mentor program. So I scrolled through the directory of alumni. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't know product design or UX design existed, but then I found this title called like product designer of like Google. So I thought that was interesting because I was like, oh, what does design have any place in like technology? I thought it was like drawing and stuff like that. I can't draw. I can only do stick figures even to this day. So if you think product design is like graphic design, like Isabella's stuff, no, it's not. But even though I'm not a designer by any means, I knew I enjoyed like critical thinking and problem solving. So when I talked to this mentor, the product designer at Google, she told me about like, she talks to people all the time and she thinks about like problems a lot. And I'm a people person as well. So talking to her like confirmed that product design really is the intersection between like creative problem solving and like tech, and just kind of like like a nicely like in between the spectrum. And UCLA didn't have any UX design classes at the time. So I thought to myself to like take some CS classes first. I took like introduction to CS and like data structures, algorithms, and front end development classes. So that actually really helped indirectly as well. And then I went outside on a online bootcamp curriculum called General Assembly to do this like UX design immersive over the summer, like a 10-week course to build my own project and then put it on our portfolio. So that's kind of like a product designer's resume is like our website. And so that's where it houses all our projects. That's our most important like asset. And so that was kind of my journey. And again, what appealed to me about it was like, I was in piano before. So my favorite part was like performing for an audience and conveying like an emotional message or like just something like an intent. And that kind of is like product design or any like role in product where you're not really designing for yourself, you're designing for the end user, the consumer, the other person on the other side. So you think about the other person, you empathize, and and that kind of translates into your work. And yeah, I just thought I still am in love with this role. So
Yeah, thank you so much. These answers were great. I love how everyone had a different story of how they got into the position. And, you know, a lot of times that you don't really know what an even position even is until like, you enter college and stuff like that. So this is a great segue into our last prepared question. So a lot of the audience are like high school students. So what advice would you give your high school self if you like, travel back in time with your current knowledge? And I guess talk a little bit about what you did during high school or college to get more experience before entering your current career. I mean, we can go back to like Justine, Richa, Arjun, Isabella, if that works. Oh, you muted. Yeah.
Sorry. I hate Zoom. Yeah, so let me see, what did I do in high school? That was like 8 years, no, not 8 years ago, but like 4 or 5 years ago. I did a lot of product design. Wasn't like a big thing then. Even tech, not as much. AP, like even though we were in the heart of Silicon Valley, like APCS, at least at my school, wasn't super big. So I didn't take APCS, but what I was involved in a lot was I was involved in like, for example, like marching band. And I was actually like, I'm not sure if you guys know what the drum major is. Like imagine just like a block of like 100 by 4 like block of like people like marching down. And there's like this like one person in the front like swaying this mace and tossing it everywhere and just kind of like being like it's kind of like the president of the club, but it's like in marching band terms. So then I always gravitated towards leadership roles, and kind of like leading groups together to do a bit greater cause. I also volunteered for this club to help English language development students in like elementary school. So I always gravitated towards like people and like really understanding. And for example, for the ESL, the English language development kids, like there was a lot of issues with like curriculum and how to help them not fall into the cracks in comparison with other kids. So I really had to think about problems and creative problem solving again too. So I think all of this kind of experience, leadership, problem solving, just like stuff like that really translated to product design later on. And so yeah, don't worry if you don't even know like what role what role you might be in, because I didn't even know product design existed at the time, so you never know. And then as a last kind of advice, very general, like don't sweat it. I think if you're feeling pressure that you're supposed to have your life figured out at like 18 years old or like 17 years old, or your parents always putting pressure on you, like that's crazy. I wholeheartedly thought that I was gonna be the next like Chopin or Beethoven or like the performer like for piano performance, and look how wrong I was. So really don't sweat it. Like take your time, really enjoy your freshman year, and like Isabella said, like join a bunch of clubs, talk to a bunch of people and network, because and make sure the clubs you join isn't only academic clubs. I did a bunch of hip hop clubs at UCLA too. Like try and navigate what speaks out to you most, and like you never, like life always has a funny way of like coming back to you and like really telling you like, oh, this is what you like and this is what you should do. So like you guys are going to be fine.
Yes, I 100% second that. Everything Justine said, like I had no idea what I was going to be or what I wanted to do. So don't worry. I think it's great that you guys get to hear all these experiences now and kind of see at least what's out there. When I was in high school, I could not be tied down. I wanted to do everything. I was interested in everything. And so I did do some of the more techie stuff. Like I was in robotics and I was like, oh, let's like explore all this stuff. And so I did that. I was also a springboard and platform diver. So I was competing kind of all over the country, and I really, really loved sports. I also did art. I played the violin. So again, like all over the place. But I think the coolest thing about that was because I was doing all this stuff, I was meeting a ton of different people. And I think that was really pivotal for me, seeing, okay, these are different experiences people have gone through. They come from, all different walks of life, all different kind of background. And that really showed me, it kind of broke me out of like the bubble I was in school, where everyone kind of had similar backgrounds to me. And so that was really cool for me to see. And so I guess for any advice, I'd say just meet people who are different than you, meet people, from all different backgrounds, because I think it teaches you a lot, not only like how other people are, but what people are interested in and what's really out there. Like really keep an open mind, because you will definitely learn things that you didn't know beforehand. And, you may, like I was very much a planner. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, then this, then this, and this is where I'm going to end up. And it did not go like that at all. And don't worry if that's your case too. Like, just keep an open mind and see what's out there, because I think there's a lot, especially in tech. There's so much.
I want to start off by saying that I'm like so sorry for the way that the college application process works, because like they make you demonstrate like, you know, a 10-year record. Like maybe you're like 15 and they're like, we need 16 years of violin experience. And it's just like insane how like they want you to box yourself into these like certain interests and like spend all your time doing those things when you're so young. So I want to second everything that Justine and Richa said. Like, please explore. Like, it's crazy that they make you choose your major coming into college. Like, just please explore, please try other things. The only way you're going to actually figure out what your interests are is if you try a whole bunch of things. Like, you always have more time to become super experienced in whatever you're passionate about later on. Like, try things right now. The other thing is that you might feel a lot of pressure, not just from parents, but like kind of social pressures to like pursue certain opportunities. For example, growing up in the Silicon Valley is always like, go into software engineering. And as I said, I was kind of miserable doing that. And so the idea, what I learned was that regardless of what your interests are, you'll always find something that matches your interests. You just don't know about it yet. And if it's not there, you can create it. So like when I was at UCLA, like I was like, there's not a lot of spaces for like queer people in tech. So I just started this Queer Hacks, which is like the first collegiate LGBTQI plus hackathon. I was told all through high school that there's no space for you to embrace your identity or care about marginalized people in artificial intelligence. And I realized that was wrong. I organized with Queer and AI, which puts on like workshops and like empowering events at different machine learning conferences. And I think the very last thing I have to say is always listen to other people and their stories. Like I think in any space you are, try your best to figure out who is not currently being included and then try to include them. If you do that, you will always end up in a better place than you are currently, even though it may not seem in the present like you're benefiting yourself. Like whenever you have more voices at the table, that will always make the field you're working in better, but also your life a lot better.
Cool. Okay. So let's see, high school. Wow. Yeah, that does feel like a very long time ago. When I was in high school, I remember very clearly, I had a friend who was in our CS class. I think we only had one computer science related class at that school. But I had a friend who was in it and he was telling me about it. And it like went straight over my head. It was so crazy to me how, you could build something with a computer just by typing words. I just thought it was way overwhelming. And I could never do it myself. That was totally wrong, obviously. So I would say definitely if you're curious about something, go for it, just do it. This is along the same lines as what all you three have been talking about. I highly agree with everything you guys have been saying, because yeah, just get out there and experience everything that you're curious about and interested in. Don't let fear stop you, or don't let intimidation stop you. Yeah, just do it.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for answering. I definitely completely wholeheartedly agree with all of your answers. There's still so much time to explore and explore. Like I came in here also as cognitive science, and I'm linguistics and computer science, and I have 2 minors, and I'm absolutely loving all of my classes. They're not all binary zeros and ones. So thank you so much for your answers. Now we can get to our audience Q&A. So I'm just going to share my screen again and go back to our presentation. Just give me a second. And then, yes, we can go to our next question now. So this was a question that's based from Bailey Au, Zornigor Sodikova, Sarah Mian, and Nayeli Andrade's questions. Are there CS-related fields that involve other subjects like visual arts or medicine? So any panelist that would like to respond can just freely unmute and answer whichever part of the question they would like. So I'll just say it again. Are there CS-related fields that involve other subjects like visual arts or medicine? But yeah, feel free to unmute.
I guess I'll go first on this one. So as far as the visual arts, I would say absolutely. you can build literally anything with technology and code. There were many classes that I did while at DESMA or at UCLA in my design media arts major that we built visual representations of things with code. And there's something that I can refer you guys to if you would like to know what we use to do that. It requires some coding knowledge, but anyways, yeah. And then as far as medicine, you can build things with code that can be used in medical fields. And, you know, I think Arjun was talking about, you know, actually, I don't remember what he was talking, what it was called, the molecules. Yeah, I'll push it over to you, Arjun.
Yeah, so for the medical side of things, like there's so many different applications. The one I was talking about was predicting properties of synthetic molecules or molecules we've never seen before. And that can be really useful in discovering new drugs that were previously take like years or 2 years to develop. Other applications, there are a lot of like natural language processing based tools within healthcare, and sometimes those are unjust or they don't treat everyone equitably. We need to make sure that they're fair so that everyone gets like equitable healthcare. Also for visual arts, I have a really cool example. So this is not a plug, this is my LinkedIn, but if you go to the cover photo in like the back, that's actually generated using machine learning. So it's a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge in the style of the Great Wave off the coast of Kanagawa. And I built it using this thing called neural style transfer, which is where you take a computer vision model and you can paint any image in the style of a painting. And so that's like a very active field of research. It's very creative.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, if you're looking for intersections with tech and anything, like, chances are it's out there. And so you can just do a little bit of research, and even if it isn't like directly correlated. So for example, like when I was doing robotics, we had a lot of collaborations with Intuitive Surgical, which builds robots for surgery. And so again, like that involves programming, that involves mechanical engineering. It's all this tech coming together. And so again, like there's stuff that you might not even think about, but once you do some research, I'm sure there's always stuff out there, which is an intersection of tech and other fields.
Yeah, and lastly, adding on, I would definitely suggest joining like tech clubs or like creative tech clubs. Like I led this club called Creative Labs on UCLA, and basically what we do every quarter, we have a bunch of like projects. We had like music. It doesn't even have to be like coding necessarily, but usually it does involve like we had a music visualizer, and there was one where it would splash different colors on the screen using like piano notes, like something like that. And it was like really cool. There's visual art stuff. There was like a health like journal app that like a bunch of students created as well. And there's a food sustainability one. There was one about LGBTQ. There was like a bunch of different projects. So I would definitely suggest when you enter in college, like try to join as many clubs as you can. And like there are whatever you can think of, there's probably a similar club that you can join and participate in. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Adding on to that, like technology is such a big, field, and there's so many people in it doing so many different things. Hopefully, even from going to some of the workshop at exploretech.la, you got to see a lot of different types of applications in tech. For example, like draw with code, and is an example of like, using visual arts to and also coding together. There's game development where there are like people who code, people who design all the graphics, stuff like that. There's cryptography, and there's so many things. So even though you think like, oh, I can't do tech because like, I don't like coding or stuff like that, that's really not true. The tech industry has so many positions and definitely a lot of potential. So moving on to the next audience questions, I see that there are a bunch of questions about like education and CS fields. So Jason Lozada asks, which computer science field requires the most education? And Daiki Nariboto asks, which CS fields are the hardest to complete education for? So maybe you guys can talk about the field you're in right now and the education required to like succeed in like a career in that. We can go in like Justine, Richa, Arjun, Isabella order.
Sure, yeah. So for product design, it's actually less, how to say this. It's just that like, for example, like UX design classes weren't a thing at UCLA at the time. So I had to go out and look for it myself. And I did this like 10-week summer immersive to like build my own projects. And even now that UX design and product design and just the product design thinking process is so big in the world and generation today, there's a lot of information, there's like a wealth of information online. You can already go on to YouTube to learn how to like maybe design a simple prototype in Figma, and there's already like YouTube tutorials which didn't exist back then. And there's a bunch of Medium articles, so I really would recommend just kind of scraping the web and just like seeing what's out there. In terms of like CS, it's definitely not required on the job, but I think it definitely did help me. Like when I was at UCLA, I took a bunch of CS classes, and I work with engineers on the daily on the job, so that really helped translate and like communicate my thought process and helped work, facilitated the conversation when we had to work together to build like the UI and how to develop this animation or this like prototype, and what tech is feasible for like this feature or something like that. So to sum it up, in terms of like education, it's not like you have to take like this course and then subsequently like this course and then like it has to be like in this linear step. I think now that information is so like accessible, especially in COVID times right now, I think it's difficult to like organize information, like what to learn and how to learn stuff now that there's so much information on the web. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me like afterwards. I think Bonnie and Raf, you guys are like including email or contact information at the end for the panelists. Feel free to reach out to me if you are interested in product design, and I can help. I have like resources to help beginners like get started too, because it's confusing.
Yeah, so for product management, I'd say the most important thing is curiosity. Like that is like the baseline of what you should have. And then, you know, being able to show leadership, showing that you can work with people is also really important. There is absolutely no linear path to get to product management. That is something that I have learned over and over. Like I am graduating as a new grad and going into it as a computer science major, but I also have friends who have graduated as econ majors and math majors and still shifted into product management. So there is some sort of component where, because I'm working with engineers, I should know like what is feasible, what's actually possible to make with the technology that I have at my hands. And so in that sense, some companies do say that, oh, you should be able to code, not to the same extent as say a software engineer, but it'd be nice to have some background. But again, it gets tricky because product management is different at each company and the focuses can change a little bit. Some product managers have more of a technical focus where some don't, and they require different things in the interviews. So it's really hard to really narrow it down and say, this is what you need to know. But in general, I think being super, super curious, looking at each product that you have and being like, oh, like this feature is really cool. Let me think about how this came to be. Let me think about what problem this is addressing and what solution this feature proposes. And I think it's really more of a mindset than it is anything else. And so again, like any major, graduating from that, you can go into product management. I know people who have done software engineering for years in industry and then switched to product management. I know people who have been in a completely unrelated major, decided to go to business school and then become a product manager. So truly there is no linear path and there's no rush. And so that's the biggest thing. I think curiosity and kind of shifting your mindset and always asking yourself why and how did this come to be is really the most important for product management.
Kind of hate to be the downer here, because I don't know if I can say the exact same thing when it comes to machine learning, artificial intelligence research. There definitely is still no linear path, but most positions where you want to do, again, like research science, tend to require a PhD of some sort. And I want to emphasize here that it does not have to be in computer science. It does not have to be in machine learning. It can be in neuroscience. It can be in sociology. It can be in literally anything, because research skills, like research science skills, are very transferable. It's all about you like being able to independently come up with your own hypotheses and then test them. So regardless of what you get your PhD in, you can definitely transfer very easily into machine learning or artificial intelligence research of some kind. Generally, though, it require a PhD. If you want to do machine learning engineering, which is the development of tools for other people to more easily use machine learning, or develop the infrastructure for machine learning models to be deployed, usually you can do that with a master's degree. And that tends to require a master's degree in computer science or statistics or machine learning or something of that sort. But I have a feeling machine learning is becoming more and more accessible nowadays. It's becoming a software engineering skill. In fact, so a lot of people graduate with their bachelor's in any field, go into software engineering, which again, there's no linear path there. Like you can graduate with anything and become a software engineer. And you just use machine learning models like any other library that you would as a software engineer. So there's a lot of different things there, but on the research end, probably like master's, PhD. Sorry to say that. It's just kind of unfortunately how the system is right now.
Okay, cool. So my path was actually, I also went to a coding boot camp similar to Justine. She didn't go to coding boot camp, but I went to a coding boot camp. Yours was a different coding or a different boot camp. Sorry. So yeah, the one I went to was called Coding Dojo, and it was an in-person boot camp. They also have an online version, but that was also a 10-week intensive over the summer a couple of years ago that I did. And that was a super, super amazing experience. They just pack you full of information and you really, really learn so, so much. It really, really prepared me for the job that I'm in today. So I do recommend boot camps. But I also know people that their path was they just, researched online and learned from free or, very low cost resources online. Purely, and then now they're software engineers and have a job. So that's also a route that you can take because there's just so much information online now, so much. So that's definitely an option. And I will say, I know there's so many places that don't even require a degree at all now. I think Google doesn't even require a college degree. So I would really say, for what is required or what companies are looking for, I would say it's a lot more that they're looking for you to have the correct skill set that they are hiring you for. So you don't have to be, you didn't have to go to college for the major that you're applying for. It's just they really want to see that you can do what you say you can do and what would be required on the job. So for my instance, for me, I had a portfolio website that had all of my software engineering work on there. So that included some internship work and then also projects that I had built by myself or with friends. And those were concrete examples to show that I know how to build websites and I know how to do what the job entails. So that's really important, I think, is number one is to have the right experience and to be able to show that you know how to do it. So with that, I would say once you really start getting into a good idea of what you like to do, once you've tried a bunch of things and you kind of find your niche and you kind of find what you really like to do, I would say get a lot of experience on that. So in my example, I'm a front-end software engineer. So that's like my specific zone. There's also back-end engineers and there's product managers and product designers. And, there's a lot of different areas you can go into. So once you pick an area, I would say do work in that area so that you have the skills and the experience specific to that job. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so these are all the questions we can answer. I know that you guys still have a lot of questions in the Padlet. So if you want to learn more about these different fields or reach out to the panelists, I will link a doc and it's on the tiny URL on the slides as well. Here's some contact info of all of our panelists and Raf and I, as well as some resources you could use to learn more about different fields and technology. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. We have our closing ceremony on Socio, so make sure to get on that. Yeah, and thank you so much everyone for coming. This closing ceremony should have already started, so please head over to Socio right now and you guys should see it on the main stage. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.